Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, this is better. I'm broadcasting so everyone can hear me speaking. So if you want to talk to me, you can put on your mic, and that way I don't have to be in your area, so you guys can walk around freely as well. But you have to turn on your mic. But everyone could hear you probably. Um, uh, mm, 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 mm. This is better. Yeah. I'm broadcasting so everyone can hear me speaking. So if you want to talk to me, you can put on your mic, and that way I don't have to be in your. Hey, Q. We're all over.
Oh yeah.
We're all over in Gathertown, but they're going to be leaving soon.
Okay, yeah, I'm in Gathertown right now. You're on the roof?
Yeah, everyone's just kind of walking around, but okay, so the YouTube embed may not work. So I'm going to be putting also a link for the YouTube live stream inside of the chat, which is on your left-hand side, just so you guys could click onto it. The panel will start at 7 o'clock. Yeah, so you're free to explore for a little while, speak to other individuals, meet some new people, and I will see you at the talk. So I'm gonna be here because that way I could see everyone. It's just easier for me. Mm-mm-mm. And oh, if you do want to broadcast to everyone, step on the orange square and everyone will be able to hear you.
Oh, for real. Linda, what's going on? Is she there? No? Okay. Bye, Belinda. So when you're on the broadcast, can you hear everyone?
Hello, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Megan McLaurin, and I'm the programming coordinator at Interaccess, which organizes Vector Festival each summer. Interaccess is a gallery and production studio based in Toronto dedicated to supporting emerging and experimental practices in new media art. I'll begin by saying that at Interaccess, we oppose the violence and injustice facing Black and Indigenous communities, and that we stand in solidarity in the fight against white supremacy, systemic racism, colonialism, and we urge our community to recognize and stand up against systemic and individual acts of racism. I'd like to recognize that the land on which Interaccess operates is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat, and is now home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Toronto is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. We acknowledge this treaty, but we also remain critical of the ways it's largely been breached by settlers and newcomers. At Interaccess, we commit to the work of renewed Indigenous sovereignty. In light of this being an online event, I'm sure a lot of you folks tuning in will be joining from places outside Toronto, so I encourage you to learn more about the Indigenous territories, treaties, and languages across and beyond Turtle Island at native-land.ca. We are excited to present today's panel, Decode and Disrupt, the BIPOC Artist Experience pre- and post-pandemic in partnership with Vibe Arts' Next program. Vibe Arts operates at the intersection of arts and belonging. Vibe knows that not everyone has access to the arts, and that this is felt especially by people who live outside of the urban core. Members of equity-seeking groups, including newcomer Canadians, racialized young people, Indigenous youth, the LGBTQ+ community, and individuals living in poverty face complex barriers. Vibe works collaboratively with partners within these communities to create a lasting impact on young people through free arts programming. Vibe programs develop lifelong skills, nurture community connections, and spark creativity. Vibe works to realize a future where every young person is equipped to contribute creatively to society. Next is Vibe Arts' 2-year Black Youth Mentorship Program. Next, which is short for Network and Explore Together, was built on the vision to build, connect, and strengthen networks of Black artists throughout the GTA. The program was developed with barriers in mind to increase visibility of Black youth artists in public Canadian institutions. Throughout the program, members of the cohort receive multiple one-on-one mentorship opportunities and access to valuable programs and opportunities. Next creates shared understanding of space to overcome the barriers faced by upcoming artists in the pursuit of artistic success. And now I would like to welcome all of our panelists, Kofi Frempong, Nadine Valsen, Quentin Bersetti, and Interaccess's programming assistant, Kanisha Dabreo, who is also the curator and moderator of today's event. Kanisha Dabreo is an emerging artist, arts educator, and curator based in Toronto. She studied visual arts at York University and graphic design at Humber College. For Kanisha, community involvement through art and education is a vital form of activism. Her work is heavily influenced and inspired by her life in the Greater Toronto Area and explores social issues through visual representation and portraiture. Through her work, Kanisha engages her audience through story and history, highlighting our cultural and physical differences as points to be celebrated. Kanisha's work has been exhibited at the Gales Gallery of York University and Gallery 1313. Welcome, Kanisha. I'll hand things over to you.
Hi, thank you so much, Megan, for that lovely introduction. My name is Kanisha Dabreo. I will be your moderator for this evening. And very happy to be here. It's my first panel ever, so bear with me, everyone. And I'm so excited to just be facilitating this conversation with these three amazing artists who I will now introduce to you. starting with Kofi Frempong. Okay, so Kofi is a Ghanaian-born Toronto-based visual artist, community health worker, and founder of Freedom Fridays, a movement rooted in the belief that community can build community. Kofi has a passion for creating safe spaces which are conducive to love, learning, laughter, and endless possibilities. He is known for his use of vibrant, warm colors and free brushstrokes in depicting narratives of Black love and beauty. He believes that art is a conduit of love, and creating art is a form of expression and healing. Love the world with all your art is one of his guiding philosophies. As a professional artist, Kofi has been able to build a successful career that has opened many doors for him. Through his art, he has been featured in various blogs, exhibited at the Art Gallery of Ontario, and participated in Art Basel Miami. In addition to this, Kofi has also had the honor of having his work featured in multiple galleries in Ontario, Miami, New York, and Atlanta. Kofi has experienced many things and has accumulated many successes, but perhaps his biggest accomplishment, is being able to inspire his two wonderful daughters to develop a love for art. So thank you, Kofi, for being here. Our second panelist for tonight is Nadine Valsen. So Nadine is an award-winning bilingual producer, writer, and director. Her factual and documentary work has been shown in Canada on CBC, CBC News Network, TVO, RTV, Réseau de l'Information, sorry, it's in French, guys, Société Radio Canada, TFO, as well as TV1 and the History Network in the United States. She has directed 4 documentary projects for the National Film Board of Canada, including critically acclaimed Black, Bold, and Beautiful, and Un École Sans Frontières, and is currently developing a 5th project entitled Urban Tomorrows. Nadine has been awarded numerous grants and prizes, including 2 prestigious Chalmers Art Fellowship and a drama prize for the National Screen Institute for the short film In Between. She holds a professional degree in architecture from McGill University and is an alumni of Doc Lab, Women in Director's Chair, and the National Screen Institute. She has been an artist in residence at Osgood Hall Law School at York University and Library and Archives Canada through Archive and Counter Archive. She recently completed an MFA in Digital Futures at OCAD University. So a lot of awards. She's very well known and has done a lot of work here in the GTA and Toronto. Lastly, we have Quentin Bersetti, who is the creator of the 2020 Joshua Glover Memorial, Toronto's first monument of a person of African descent. Also down here, guys. So Quentin Bersetti is an award-winning multidisciplinary griot or storyteller, activist, educator, Afrofuturist, artographer, and ever-growing interstellar tree. While completing his 2021 master's in art education from Concordia University, he has coined the term Sankophonology, which you could correct me with the pronunciation, and Rastafuturism, and co-edited Canada's first art book on Afrofuturism entitled Cosmic Underground North Side, an incantation of Black Canadian speculative discourse and understandings. Bersetti has exhibited his art in countries around the world with a focus on representation and inclusion of Blackness and African diasporic cultures. Through all the work he does, he hopes to activate ancestral connections, engage minds, inspire hearts, and help to make the world a better place, not only for today, but for many tomorrows to come. So, round of applause for all of our panelists who were specifically hand-chosen for tonight's event. they all have diverse and a lot of knowledge that will contribute to an excellent conversation for tonight. So, lovely panelists, you can turn on your mics and we'll get started with our conversation. Say hello, say hello. Okay. So, my first question goes out to everyone, so you guys can jump in at any moment to kind of put your input here. I thought we would start with an easy question that can really relate to all emerging artists or art lovers that would be listening to this conversation right now. So, what made you decide to become a professional artist? What were some of the most important milestones that propelled you to your art career? So we can start with the first half. Just what made you choose to become an art professional?
Maybe I'll start. I guess to make my parents angry is probably the, for any child of immigrants. I was always making things as a kid. I was really like a crafty kid and loved to draw and loved to make things and loved to make clothes but I was also really good at science, and my parents were very, it's like that immigrant thing where they want you to succeed and they want you to do well. And I think I ended up in architecture school because it was the most creative thing that I could do with my background in science. And then, I came out of architecture school and still just wanted to do something more human-centered and something more socially engaged. So that's how I became a filmmaker against the will of my parents.
Awesome. Okay. Kofi or Q?
I can go first. For me, it was to make sense of the world around me. Coming out of Rexdale and Malton, a lot of my peers and myself as well, we were finding ourselves in situations where we weren't thinking about our tomorrows. And I lost a lot of friends growing up to gun violence, to jail, to addictions, to all different types of situations. And I kind of had survivor's guilt in a way. I was just like, why me? And so art kind of gave me that outlet and to heal the wounds that I was experiencing and that was growing, and also to give voice for some of the people around me who felt like they didn't know how to express themselves. So that's kind of how I got started.
Amazing, thank you. And Kofi?
So for me, it's interesting because I didn't set out to be a professional artist. My passion has always been just creating safe spaces, like in the bio. Just wanted to create safe spaces that are conducive to love, learning, and laughter, and endless possibilities. I took about 6-7 years away from art and found my way back. And the career aspect of it, it just transitioned naturally. So it wasn't anything that was pre-planned. I sort of built my career as I was living my life, and it got me to this point. So now it's, we'll see where it goes from here.
Awesome, thank you. I think that, like, for emerging artists, I feel like we've all gone through that phase where we're like, oh, art is not a career that I can pursue, but for some reason always stays with you until it pushes you to go, full force into that career. So thank you guys for sharing that. I did want to ask, like, what was, I guess, the moment that really shifted for you, where you that kind of propelled you into being a professional artist versus an emerging artist or a hobbyist?
I can jump in that. I know my answer right away. There's two parts to that. First was I was kind of like had one foot in the streets and one foot like exploring my creative expression. And I got into this poetry competition, and I saw these spoken word artists doing all this like what we consider the stereotypical poetry, like I rip my heart out my gut, and you know, and the typical like American slam poetry that you'll see Def Jam or whatever. So I kind of just did a freestyle and like to mimic and to mock them, you know what I mean? But it was like a freestyle, like coming straight from the heart. I was talking about my grandfather passing away and just talking about losing my best friend, seeing him get killed in a party, and just really like just pouring my heart. And I won the competition, and I got paid $500. And I was like, what? I can get paid to do this? What? And I was like, yo, did y'all know I'm an artist too? And then so one of the judges saw my work, bought my work, and I was like, what? I got paid twice in one night? I was like, hold on, maybe I shouldn't stop selling this illegal stuff and start doing some legal stuff, you know? But the main thing that made me realize I wanted to be a professional artist was I was doing a mural up in Yorkdale, just outside the Yorkdale subway station. It's pretty much gone now because all the construction. And I realized there was an elder missing from the mural. We were telling the story of Lawrence Heights, and essentially the representation of an elder was missing. And as I was painting, like something told me to look up, and I looked and I saw this man walking down the street. He just had this like really bouncy swag, and it was like this really jazzy guy. And he's like, oh, what's going on here? And we told him we're doing a mural for Lawrence Heights, and you know, this is what we're trying to represent. And he's like, oh, I've been living here for 40 years, and I seen this and seen that. I remember this person lived here and that person. And then I was like, oh, cool. And then I just turned my back to continue to working. And then something like in my head said, yo, stupid, this is the guy you're looking for. And so he was about to light a cigarette. And I stopped him to be like, yo, sir, can I just take a quick picture of you? Because I would love to put you in this mural because I feel like you kind of represent the energy of Lawrence Heights, and you're like an elder, you know, you're not like an elder, you're an elder for the community, and you're like a knowledge keeper. So he's like, all right. So he threw away his cigarette, leaned back, smiled, and gave me the most beautiful smile, like dark-skinned gentleman with white beard, with the suspenders, like classic. And then for the next 3 weeks, he kept visiting us. And every time he came, he brought us gifts. He started bringing his grandchildren, et cetera, et cetera. Long story short, he comes to the opening of the event, and whole big family. And essentially, he was crying. And I was like, what's going on? He's like, yo, I got to thank you because the day you saw me a couple weeks ago, I was diagnosed with lung cancer. And the doctors told me the next cigarette I smoke could kill me. And you put me in this mural, stopped me from smoking that last cigarette. And ever since then, I decided to dedicate my life to live, you know, because your mural gave me something to live for. And then his children told me that for many years, like almost like decades, they haven't spoken to their father. And so him now feeling important, feeling validated, now wanted to improve his relationship with his children, which then trickled down to him building a relationship with his grandchildren. And so for him to get his exercise, he would walk to see us every day. And we never knew that. Okay. Long story short, this gentleman lived for another additional 5 years until he passed away, until he transitioned. But for me, it realized how art in the simplest ways can save lives, you know. And I was like, yo, I want to definitely continue to help and save lives in any ways I can, and continue to be an instrument of inspiration for others.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that story. I even personally have seen how art, or just as a teacher, an art teacher, how practicing art can change a student's life or inspire them in some way. There was a key point that I did want to elaborate on with, and I invite Nadine and Kofi to also jump in at any moment, of representation and how representation plays a part in your artwork. Does anyone want to speak to that? I think we all do it in some form, and almost they overlap in a way, but I wanted to see like what's the importance of representation in your work?
I know, I'll go. I mean, I think it's at the center of the work. Like, I think like that's why you do the work, because you don't see people like you represented, because you want to change the narrative, because you want to give, both, because I make film, give voice, and also just frame, like literally, physically frame people in a different way, but also, more socially, psychologically, just give different narratives like that. I think, and I think that's what's powerful in art, is being able to communicate that. And recently I've been really interested in like memory and bringing forth like erased histories, things that people don't know or don't talk about. So I think it's I think for, especially for Black artists, I think it's really core.
Amazing. Okay, Kofi, do you want to jump on that before we move to our next question?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely what Nadine was saying. I'm 100% on board with that. I would definitely add, the aspect of providing different narratives. For me, growing up, I used to watch shows, movies, and wish that they had like a Black version, or they told stories in a way that I can directly relate to. That I didn't necessarily have to live vicariously through white characters. And I think the power of that is that it definitely helps to strengthening our community, just to see possibilities. But also for those little kids that are coming up, for them to be able to see themselves in narratives that aren't necessarily represented, those very narrow depictions of who we are. And like you and I talked about a lot, just the way in which we are represented in different communities around the world. Like, I think it's super important to have those aspects, those stories told.
Okay, awesome. So where do you draw inspiration for your artistic practice? So we know that including representation in your work is key, especially as a Black artist. But where do you pull your inspiration? Hugh, you just mentioned like seeing the old man come by and it immediately like sparked something that you could include in your mural. But I guess as a whole, or if you want to draw or point to a specific project that you're working on, where did you find inspiration to create a big project?
And Kofi had an answer.
Sorry, I just took some time to turn on this mic. For me, it's just honestly my day-to-day interactions and just the way that I experience the world. It all translates onto the canvas. So although sometimes I might use references, most times it's literally, I'm just going in with a blank slate and subconsciously letting the experiences spill out onto the canvas. So yeah, I'd just say my day-to-day life, everything that I download from the real world translates onto the canvas.
Are there any creative influences, other Black artists, Black organizations, or just artists and organizations in general that kind of influence how you create or how you make your work?
Yeah, I'd say for me, I know Nadine got dope things to say, so I'm gonna say mine's quick before she drops the mic. But I work with an organization called the Black Speculative Arts Movement, also known as BSAM. I co-founded the chapter here in Canada, and we're all about like Afrofuturism, thinking about Black representation in a fantastic way, an imaginative way, and for me, my biggest inspiration comes from my grandfather and how community oriented he was before he transitioned in 2006, and just thinking about legacy building, and that's something he taught me in his transition, how much of a legacy he built by giving to others and by supporting others and by listening to the story and thinking about, how can you honor this? How can you honor people's stories and honor their struggles and honor the things they've been through in the simplest ways, and validate people. And so for me, I take a lot of inspiration from him, and then it encourages me to look to my ancestors and look to my community, so that's where I draw a lot of my inspiration from, and then thinking about how does that move forward towards the future.
Okay. So you did touch on a great point, which is looking to your ancestors. At least for me, like the importance of kinship and community has been huge in cultivating my experience as an emerging artist. How has that tied into your experience before the pandemic and during all of the closures and lockdowns over COVID? So just kinship and community and looking to people who are, have done it before. How has that played into your art career when you were starting out versus now?
I'll go. I think like filmmaking is always like a communal activity. So there is that kinship of people that you work with and you collaborate with over the years and become part of your community. I was really surprised over the last year and a half as I was finishing my master's at OCAD, and I was doing digital futures and 3D modeling, which I hadn't done before. And I was surprised because I reached out to different people like around the world using some of the technology, and asking for advice. And I was amazed that like people just responded to this perfect stranger and were really generous. So I thought like that was an interesting kind of example of community, really. And I don't know if it was because it was the pandemic and everybody was feeling more disconnected, but I felt like, wow, it's like I was in touch with somebody in Japan and somebody in the UK, and having these dialogues was really enriching for me.
That's amazing. I want to shout out Kofi because that was my experience, actually. I've been following Kofi for so long, and I was like, oh my God, this celebrity artist from Toronto. And then I just sent him a message on Instagram, and I was like, hey, I love your work, and he just responded like a human being, which I think most people, don't expect. And it was so generous in imparting his knowledge on me as somebody who's following behind him and has like similar values or inspirations like Black art. And so I just wanted to also shout out Kofi for that as well, because I do see that community, especially and kinship, does play a huge role in just developing yourself as an artist. And I did want to share that with any emerging artists who are watching, that like make those connections, like even though it's scary and they seem like they won't talk to you, just shoot your shot and like actually reach out and say hello, and you'd be surprised by how helpful and willing people are to help out. Q, did you have anything that you wanted to share, or so you're nodding over there?
Well, I would say Kofi is a nice guy, except for when it comes to playing chess and basketball. That's what I would like to add. And I would like to say Nadine is all around amazing human being. I had opportunities to just be in both of their spaces, and that's something I miss, just being in the space with other artists, so that's definitely changed how I create, because like sometimes I like to bounce ideas, like, yo, Kofi, is this good enough? Does this meet your bar? Like, does this meet your standard? And sometimes he's like, nah, Q, like, go back to the drawing board. So I mean, no, I'm sure.
Kofi, wow.
No, I'm playing. To be honest, like I'm a homebody, so because a lot of my work is digital, and then I do some painting and stuff like that. Like everything, like all those projects that you see coming out, is just because I have to go nowhere, so it's like
Yeah.
it's been blessed. So so my work has just been more amplified, really. So yeah, so yeah, that's all I can say.
Awesome. Okay. So during the, all of the closures of everyone's, like globally, everyone was affected negatively in many different ways. Artists, of course, had mixed kind of experience with the pandemic. And I just wanted to know, like, how was it for you guys? Just like maintaining those connections, because a lot of kinship and community plays a role in art and staying connected, and maybe even going to a gallery space where you can create your paintings. How has the closures affected your creative process and your way of connecting with other artists?
Okay, I think it was interesting because in some weird ways, there were some really positive things because I got to attend like Zoom events and lectures with amazing artists from all over the world that, normally I wouldn't have access to. So I think that was great in terms of, feeling like you're in this international community and you're watching this event that's taking place in New York or London or wherever. So I think like that was really something stimulating, and I hope it's something that continues like after the pandemic, like this kind of streaming of events. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. Like, I mean, yeah, I work a lot, at home on my own, so it's not like a huge difference, but it's a huge difference in terms of, yeah, getting to go to the gallery, getting to just talk to people, getting to bump into, it's like beyond your immediate group. It's like, going to an event and seeing Quentin or seeing Kofi and getting to chat with them and getting to talk to people that that aren't in your immediate close circle. I find like that was hard. And, it was hard not seeing films in a theater, not going to the gallery, not sharing.
Anyone else want to jump on that question?
Yeah, I absolutely miss going to the theaters. That whole experience, people kicking your seat, standing up in front of you, the smell of popcorn, all of it. I miss it with a passion. In regards to like how the pandemic has been, I haven't painted in about 9 months, but it has forced me to explore other mediums that I've kind of been, putting off to the side. So I'm drawing a lot more now. I'm using markers a lot more. In terms of connecting with community, because like I'm so active online, that actually has amplified because more people are on their phones, so they're more on social media. I've been able to dive into TikTok and slowly start to build a community there, Instagram. From the business perspective, I went in with an assumption that because it was the pandemic, people wouldn't have money, therefore they wouldn't be interested in purchasing art. About a month into it, I realized that it was the complete opposite. Because people were at home looking at their bare walls, they had a lot more money saved up because they weren't going out and being active. Obviously, this isn't for everybody because some people had, a really bad, took a really bad financial hit. But within the community of people that support my art, I noticed that they were reaching out a lot more. They had the time, they had the space, and now they had the visual motivation in their homes to like really fill up their walls and contribute to their mental health. So a lot of people reached out, more so than before the pandemic, which was pretty cool.
Okay, so I did want to kind of go a little bit deeper into the lockdowns and what has happened over the last year during the pandemic. Like we've seen a lot of an uprise in the Black Lives Matter movement following the George Floyd event, I guess you could say. You know, and many different types of organizations, you know, put up the black square on Instagram and, you know, kind of almost wearing it as a brand of, you know, allyship. What is your experience, or can you speak on that experience for you? Did that also play like a role in your artwork? Yeah, just how was your experience? Because I know a lot of people may have, you know, lost friends over the conversations that were happening. We all are Black artists, and it did in some way, you know, seep into our artwork, or maybe stopped us from being able to create. So I just wanted to hear if, you know, how was that experience for you over the last year?
I guess I'll go first.
Okay.
Yeah. So my experience has been interesting. I've noticed a lot of fake allyship. Like you said, you know, when that Pitch Black post movement came out, you see a lot of people jump on board, you know, 1 foot in, and as soon as that was passed, like a lot of them disappeared. Conversations online that you know, brought up a lot of the issues that we as a community were expressing, and just to hear the pushback from well-meaning allies, it kind of revealed that maybe they weren't, you know, in a place to support as they thought they were. In regards to like our community, I've always been an advocate that we actually do support each other. I know everybody says that Black folks don't support each other. I've always been the one to push back and say that we do, but the reality is there is a community within the community that doesn't support each other. And a lot of times we speak about one half without necessarily speaking about the other. During this whole event, I've noticed that there is more motivation to support Black-owned everything. So to me, that was a major, and I haven't really seen it fade, not just in support for me, but in support in other spaces. I've seen the energy continue. So I thought that was a good thing.
Nadine or Quentin, would you like to speak on this as well?
Yeah, I mean, it was a difficult time. I think, you know, especially in the ironically in the film industry, I think yeah, there was a lot of performative allyship and you know, statements from companies and all this kind of stuff that kind of led to nowhere. But there was also, I guess, at some point, some pushback against the institutions that fund films to say, okay, you can't just say, you know, you know, you're implementing diversity, you know, strategies if there are no serious numbers attached to it. So I think, you know, in some institutions, like for example, like Telefilm, you know, it's like they've moved and you know, they had started already with the gender parity, but now they're adding you know, racialized people as a, you know, like they need to fund a certain percentage. So I think, you know, things are moving slowly, and I think, you know, there's been like the BIPOC film and TV group, like there's been a lot of kind of organizing and mobilizing in the film industry. I think that's come out of that.
Okay. So to draw on a little bit of a statistic here in Toronto, according to a study in 2020, I have the link here that I'll drop in the chat at some point. Only 18 Toronto art galleries represent 454 artists, but only 2% of those artists are Black. So what I wanted to, there are a lot of Black artists. I've met them over this time period just on like Instagram or social media and other platforms like that. What is your experience working with larger institutions like art galleries downtown or arts organizations, and just like representation there?
So I work at the Art Gallery of Ontario. Been working there almost for 10 years, and been the only Black guy in my department of like 50 people for the last 10 years. So there's a lot of explaining and need to break things down for folks, because like, you know, there's no cookie cutter to be an ally, first and foremost. And then the common trope that happens is that people think that Black people are a monolith. Like, you know what I mean? They think they're all the same. So they think that there's one approach to deal with certain Black issues, you know? And it's like, nah, we're actually multicultural. Like a Ghanaian is not the same as a Jamaican, you know? Even though they look the same to you. Well, they don't look the same to me, but that's a whole nother thing. But the point is, what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of education that needs to happen. I tip my hat off to them, you know, literally and figuratively, because they're starting to create more departments to deal with diversity and inclusion, and anti-Black racism, but also recognizing that diversity and inclusion doesn't mean that you tokenize folks, you know. So they're getting a little better on that side of things. They're hiring more Black staff. They actually hired a cluster hire. So I'm starting to see that with more institutions. At Concordia, they did the same. I think, OCAD also did the same. I know the ROM also followed suit with the AGO with doing these cluster hires. But I need to see cluster commissioning now, you know. I need to see cluster exhibitions. Across Canada, all the major art galleries, and you can look it up, all the major art galleries have never shown a Black Canadian as a headliner. It has never been done before, never. We had group shows. We had American artists headline, but we never had a Black Canadian, you know? So I would love to see that change within my lifetime. And I don't think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. It's just that the people in the room needs to reflect us. So people realize like it's something that's needed.
Okay. What advice do you have for emerging artists interested in having their art shown in galleries or these larger institutions? Like, how could they approach getting into these spaces? Because it does seem unattainable when you're just starting out, especially as a Black artist, where there's like 2% of representation there.
Just run up on the gallery. Just run them up on the... No, really and truly, the best way is relationships. You know, everything in the industry is based on relationship. Like I'm very fortunate to call Nadine and Kofi my friend, you know, and you know, if Kofi has opportunity, he might pass it on to me, knowing that like we're close like that, but not only because we're close, but we have built a relationship where he can co-sign me on certain things and vice versa, you know, and same thing with Nadine. So every industry is based on relationship. Your success is based on your relationship, your associations, you know. One of the big things I like to say is like, it's not who you know, it's who can vouch for you. And so my advice I would give to artists is build relationships with the curators, because what happens is curators are in a bubble. And in their bubble, they only mess with who's in their periphery. So you have to build that relationship. And the thing is, it's okay if your work is not at that level. Build that relationship so you can get that mentorship, or maybe get connected to an artist or to some type of program, residency, et cetera, where your work can then develop or learn what that gallery might be looking for, what curators might be looking for. You know, every gallery has a need. And I think every Black artist can fill the vacuum of those needs, but they need to get into the periphery of those curators. The curators are very much white, but they're also very much academic, you know what I mean? And so artists need to learn how to get in those conversations by learning about what those conversations are, and that can only happen if you build relationships.
Okay, awesome. Nadine, I would like to throw that over to you as well, just because you are in film and documentary, or a documentary film as well. So if an emerging artist that's more directed to film and that medium, what would you give as an advice to, you know, be in TIFF, for example, or one of those kind of those higher organizations or recognizable organizations where they can show their work?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because, you know, TIFF gets like thousands of I mean, it's just, and actually it was funny because somebody reached out to me today and I sent them, like, Telefilm has a list of what they consider the A list or the top tier festivals, and you can find that on their website. But, you know, sometimes it's, and it, you know, festivals are part of the way they make money is through people having to pay submission fees, right? So when you're first promoting your film, like, you can, you know, at some point you could easily run up like, you know, $1,000 worth of submission fees, like if you're really, you know, adamant about it. And sometimes it's more about finding a smaller niche festival. You know, if you've done a short, like if you're at TIFF, like everybody's paying attention to the big Hollywood stars that are coming, to the big features. They're not really paying attention to the shorts. So maybe it's more beneficial to you to go to a smaller short film festival and get noticed there and get noticed by other you know, programmers that will then invite you to another festival, or to go to a Black festival. Or it's kind of really researching, I would say, the festivals and seeing which one is the better fit for your film. Because if you're doing a documentary, it might not be the same as a comedy, because, you know, there are lots of comedy film festivals, but there are documentary film festivals, but they're separate. So I would say, you know, do your research.
Okay. Just to combine what you both said, I thought it was a great point to highlight, like building a community and making those connections with not just people you know, but who will vouch for you, in combination with doing those little festivals that will lead to the big festivals, I think is a part of the art journey in general. It's like one event building onto another until all of a sudden you know, you're an established professional artist with a career in their pocket. So I just wanted to also just highlight that a little bit more for emerging artists here. I did want to touch a little bit on tokenism, and just like, you know, there are gatekeepers and barriers as a Black artist in the art community and outside of the art community. How do you navigate this space where, you know, there are barriers set and there are gatekeepers that will, you know, kind of block the road? How do you, you know, find a way around that? How do you navigate? How do you keep your momentum and your positivity and your drive to become an artist when there may be stuff in the way?
Well, I think what I would say to that is just taking a few steps back. It's really important to grow confidence in your craft, grow the energy within your community, and also just like have a vision for yourself, so that when you walk into these spaces, the little scraps that are sometimes given to you, you're not scrambling like to grab it. Oh, here's this great opportunity, because you have nothing to fall back on. Some people might feel like their skills aren't up to par, and they're just lucky enough to be in a space, so they'll take anything. Some people feel like they don't have any support elsewhere, so this is the only place I'm going to get support. Some people don't even know where they want to go, so they let institutions dictate their direction. I feel like once you are confident in those three areas, you can walk into a space and the conversation looks a lot different. You are having an exchange from a place of power, as opposed to being put in a position where you can be taken advantage of, and thinking that it's the only opportunity that you will ever have. And if you don't sell your soul at this very moment, then you're doomed forever. Again, going back to the power of community, I've been in spaces, like large spaces, online spaces, where it's like millions of followers. And the way they ripped up my work and mocked it, I'm sure a lot of it is doing part because like there's a lot of Twitter fingers and trolls out there. But when I go back into my community, the way that they experience my artwork is a lot different, and it feels really good. Even if people within my own community don't necessarily connect with the artwork, it's a different type of energy that they bring. Like they can disagree in a way that it's like you're having a conversation with family, and it's rooted in love, as opposed to being in a space and somebody's like, oh, that's very colorful. It's two different energies, So just being in those spaces and being confident within, I guess, your whole art practice and your whole being is very key for me.
Just to expand on that, how have you cultivated this community that can be supportive for you and kind of be your cheerleader in the background on the days where you're, not as confident in your work, or, you need that pick me up?
The really short answer is connecting with people, and providing value, knowing that it's a two-way street. You're not just on there to create a space where people are there to simply support you. You as well have to give back. So the same energy that people give you, it's your responsibility to give back to people. And I think once you're able to create that kind of energy, people will bring other people, because the energy is so positive and it's loving that there's no choice for it but to grow.
Nadine or Q, would you like to jump on that? Like your own community, how have you built a following and maintained it over the lockdowns and just in general over your journey as an artist? Not all at once. Just kidding.
I mean, I would say that, I agree with Kofi. It's building communities, not like a one-way street. It's not just about the people who support you. It's about supporting other people. It's about, when people reach out to you for information, it's about, helping them out if you can. And it's about, helping other people and being open and I mean, I think some people feel like it's a competition. It's a competition because they feel like there isn't we're competing for grants, but it's like we're not competing because we're all different, right? Like we all do something different, and it may be that one time you get a grant and somebody else doesn't, and the other time it's the reverse. Like you can't. I think it's really important to realize, that it's hard out there, that you need community and you need to support other people.
I did want to touch on, that we're all different. We all are artists. And even if we're all portrait artists, everyone will have their own kind of spin or their essence in their work. What is the importance of, having your own voice, having your own values, having your own style as an artist?
Kofi, this is your answer. For me, I wasn't something I was thinking about, because I am a firm believer that once you're being integral, once you're expressing yourself from a true space, it's gonna be unique. You're gonna find your own style. You're gonna realize you like to do certain things in a certain way. You realize that, oh, I like yellow ochre instead of like any other yellow, or I like printing my work on luster instead of semi-gloss, or I like to shoot with a 35 millimeter lens instead of you realize like you have a very specific taste and you like to do certain things in a very particular way based on what's true to you. So I would say once you operate from a personal space of passion and with intent and purpose, your style is going to come through.
Okay. And that would take like trusting yourself, listening to your voice, what you're, and going with, what's true to yourself. And okay, awesome. I do have a question from our viewers. Do you find it difficult to build relationships as a Black man or woman? So I guess within the art community and outside, we could include organizations, just in general. Do you find it difficult, or are you met with some hesitation, I guess you could say? I can, before you guys answer, just to give you some thinking time. I've traveled to different countries, and where maybe Black people aren't as visually represented there, and immediate, not that I was shut down, but there were sometimes looks or immediate relation to, oh, Cardi B, or, those stereotypes that are not me at all. So I could, I just want, so you guys could share on this, what is your experience, or do you find it difficult? Are you always welcomed? Is, in different spaces, how does that play out? Or how do you overcome it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say film especially is a very white male dominated, space. Documentaries not as bad, but if you go into drama, it's 5% of the feature films are directed by women, some crazy kind of stat. And I think it's changing, but also all the tech people tend to be white male, the camera, the sound, editors not so much, but so it's a very kind of white and kind of I would say kind of macho environment, and it's very much geared towards people who are doing things that are more kind of, I would say, Hollywoodish, more, mainstream. So yeah, it's hard. When you're women, I mean, I remember there was a time, and I was a producer on a show, and I asked an editor to make an edit because it was just something that fit into a series, and I would just ask him to change, and he refused because he didn't think it looked good. And I'm going, I'm not really asking for your opinion. I'm just asking you to do this because it matches. And I literally had to go get his supervisor for him to actually do, and it was just a cut, it was just the most simple, but he just refused to do it because he didn't agree with it. And it was just absurd. So yeah, I mean, and there are your spaces as a Black, sorry, that was my dog. As a Black woman, especially, in film, if you arrive on a show and it's a really mainstream show, people will question, the fact that you're a Black woman and that you're in charge. They don't necessarily think it's a natural thing.
Quentin or Kofi, would you like to jump in, or are you okay?
So I like to say I'm a good chess player. You know, Kofi can probably attest to this. And but why I'm bringing it up is because I move very strategic. You know, I mean, I learned that from the streets. It's all about like not cutting out the middleman type of thing. You know, but then also knowing how to use that middleman. And for me, sometimes that middleman is Kofi. You know, I'll be like, yo, Kofi, do you know so and so? Yo, put me on the phone with that person. Let me get to know that person. Like Kofi just knows everybody, you know what I mean? And he's just a generous person that will connect you with folks, you know. So I think I'm very fortunate to have friends who has friends who are well known and kind of can help get things done. So for me, a lot of the relationship building is through relationships that I already have. And so you know, I've just been blessed to have like this whole 6 degrees of separation type of thing, you know, because within the art industry, it gets really small, you know, circles get really small. And so, you know, there's always, at least for my where I'm at right now, it's like, there's like at least like that person's person knows that person who I want to know, you know? And so, and the good thing about that is like sparking conversations and then finding commonalities, you know? And so between like chess, wine, and like Marvel or superhero stuff, like there's always something to talk about with someone, you know, like I'll be like, yo, have you seen that Marvel movie? Like not even talking about art, like just talking about things that people might like. And then if they say no, it's like, okay, well, we can have a conversation. Why don't you like it? Are you a strange human being? You know, like, so for me, it's like, yeah, like creating networks and creating relationships hasn't been hard, but maintaining it, that's really the issue. Maintaining it is really difficult. Like, I don't know how me and Kofi been friends for so long because I'm always trolling him. But, you know, because I maintain that energy, it's like we've been friends and he doesn't unfollow me on social media. And then Nadine, I don't bother her as much, you know, because I know she will block me. So I just maintain how much I bother her for things.
Okay, that makes sense. And it all draws back to the community. So I guess it does make connecting and networking less scary and a little bit easier because you have genuine connections that will lead to another connection. And it's not just like cold calling, I don't know, an organization and being like, hey, I don't know anyone, show my work now, kind of attitude, if that makes sense. So again, goes back to community and kinship and, you know, making genuine connections. So I hope that answers your question, audience member. I
actually had something to add to that.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So a lot of artists that I come across, including myself, like a lot of us will say that we're shy. And that is definitely me. A lot of people don't believe me, but to my core, I'm super shy. But I'm navigating these two worlds, one which I'm shy and I like to be by myself, and then the other where I genuinely love people and listening to their stories and connecting. So as an artist, it's kind of like this Superman Clark Kent type thing. When I'm in the public space, when I'm in a position where like I'm representing myself as an artist, those connections are a lot easier to make versus Kofi, like away from the art. It is a struggle because I'm not really a fan of small talk. I'm not really a fan of quote unquote networking. I prefer relationship building over networking. So for me, that's how I reconcile the struggle. I'm in it to build relationships more so to network. And when I'm able to do that, I'm able to thrive in public spaces where I can, you know, build connections.
Okay, and just to stress again that like community building and building those connections or building relationships, it's not just showing up, shaking hands and going. It's a two-way street where you're giving and, you know, to giving and taking. So
I add one more thought to what Kofi just said, if Kofi doesn't mind. But thank you, sir. But like as artists who sometimes have to sell their work, and then you're kind of like giving your child over to somebody, you want to know who the hell you're giving your child to. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, like I don't really sell my work. Like I kind of like try to shift that model. Like I've taken a different model approach, which is a whole nother thing within itself to explain. But like, because I bank so much on relationship, it's like, yo, you're only gonna end up with an art piece of mine in your space if we have a personal relationship. I know your energy is right, and I know, like, you know what I mean? Like there's a certain level of integrity that you bring. You know, I don't want the work to just be in anyone and everyone sits in space. You know, so like that's just me. You know, and so for me, relationship building is so much more important than networking, because you can know a million people, but doesn't mean a million people have the best intent for your work, or and the best intent for you as an artist.
Okay, there was one thing I wanted to bring up, because you guys are all professional artists. So to some capacity, you would, to be, I guess, professional, would be making money off of your practice, or making a career off of your practice. There has always been this misconception that artists, you'll be the broke, starving artist kind of narrative that's like spread everywhere. And it's only been recently where I was like, hey, if I make money from my practice, then I can build my practice the way I want to. So how have you, how does that play into your work? Like, for example, you just said, Quentin, that like you only make sure that you have a connection with people who you share your pieces with. Are there any, I guess, not standards, but rules for yourself when you're selling your artwork that makes you maintain your values as an artist? Does that make sense? So anyone can jump in on this question.
I think I understand the question.
Without selling out and just making commercial work because for profit, that kind of thing.
That's the thing. Like, it depends on what you consider to be commercial work, really. Because you can make personal work and then it goes commercial. Doesn't mean that it was created for the intent of it being commercial. But for me, I guess because I'm coming from a certain place of like just being a hustler, it's like I always just never wanted to put my eggs in one basket. So I always thought about different ways to supplement my needs to make the ends meet in a way. So like I do a lot of investments and different things. I bet money on chess against Kofi, for example, stuff like that. To make sure I could pay my bills. No, I'm playing. But for me, it's like I never focused on like using my art as the money grab, you know what I mean? Because if I do that, I feel like I lose the integrity of what the work was supposed to be. And so I'm constantly looking for different ways and different streams to supplement the work that I want to create and what I need to create, So there's so many grants out there, and then again, the relationship part comes in because there's a lot of people who invest in some projects, so I do a lot of commission work, for example, and those commission numbers can get crazy, so yeah, there's so many different ways out there, and I would just say just finding your own value and then not selling yourself short, but then at the same time finding a balance between making a living and doing what you love is important. And so I'm just very fortunate and very blessed to be able to do both.
Amazing. So just expanding on that a little bit, how do you maintain, your career, make enough money, to support your practice and just support life in general, and then also avoid burnout, because art it's not a 2-minute creation process. It can take a month to create a piece, right? So while you're doing that, how do you keep these connections, network, make the actual art itself be a business person or entrepreneur, because that is being an artist in a sense. How do you do all that and stay motivated and stay, not get burnout and be like, oh no, I can't do this anymore. Let's go back to the office job.
Yeah, I guess I'll go. To the burnout question, I literally stop whenever I'm tired. I rest. And I go hard when I'm not.
Okay.
So for me, like I'm always staying true to myself. And to what Quentin was saying in regards to having different avenues of income, I think as an artist nowadays, that's really key. Because we have social media and we can build our own platforms, we can get really creative in the different ways in which we can make art. Back in the days, if it was like commissions or trying to get representation from a gallery, amongst other like little things that you can do, the scope was very narrow. But now, because there's so much opportunity to build our own platform, we could literally get really creative in creating different income streams. So for me, one of the joys is like figuring out how to make money from my art while also staying true. So it could be teaching, it could be creating exclusive coloring books, it could be commissions. I hate commissions, by the way, but it could be that. The list is so long. And then also not limiting myself to art. Again, to what Quentin was saying, like, getting into investments, making money away from your artwork so that you don't necessarily have to depend on your artwork to make money. And I think where that's really key is you also don't have to put yourself in a position where it's like you got to sell your soul with your artwork in order to survive, which is a reality. And it's not anything that I take lightly. I don't judge anybody who's ever conflicted with that, because when you're really starving and you need to eat, sometimes you got to make decisions that other people might not necessarily agree with. I'm interested to hear what Nadine has to say, because I know like she's in the film industry. So
Nadine, you've been summoned.
I need to learn how to not burn out like that. It's hard. Like it's and I'm because in film, I think it's a bit different from other art, because you need funding to make your project, right? And that's how you get paid. So you get paid if you write a grant, or in one of the docs that I'm working on is an NFB commission. So they're producing it. So they're paying me. But so it just always feels like you're juggling so many projects at the same time, because you never know which one's going to get funding, and then one project gets delayed and it stretches. Like it's a really, whenever people ask me what I'm working on, I usually stop after 3 projects, but there's usually 5 or 6 that are somewhere in the works. And I think I'm getting better at also, like Kofi said, of just stopping when I'm tired. Like I used to kind of just push through. And part of it, when I was at school, like you have a deadline, you have to make the deadline. But just learning to be actually kinder to myself when I'm tired and when I need to rest. And now the big lesson that I learned is that I need to schedule a holiday, because when you're a freelancer, nobody schedules the holiday for you. And now I see the summer is going to be almost gone. And aside from a few long weekends, I'm not going to have a holiday. So, yeah.
Okay. There was one thing that you mentioned, so grant writing plays a huge role, especially, when you have large projects and you don't have money to fund it. So anyone who doesn't know about grant writing, do a Google search, especially if you're an artist. But I did want to ask Nadine, so when you have a project that you have been funded for, or commissioned for, you could even say. How do you navigate that kind of space where, you know, you're staying true to your values or your voice as an artist, but now you're hired by someone else and you kind of have to, you know, deliver what they're asking for?
Well, I mean, I think grants are great because grants, you know, you write the projects, you get they give you the money, you do, you know, you're supposed to do what you said you were going to do with the grant, but you know, you have some leeway because it's your project, and you know, grants are the best because you don't have to pay them back. You just, they're a gift, like they really are like a gift. So that's really great. I think, you know, the National Film Board is a whole other issue. And it depends. Like I really, you know, I really like the producer that I'm working with now. And, you know, he's been very supportive because I proposed this project before I started my MFA. So I've been like doing 2 years of development, which is not usually the way it's done. And it's gone from being like a 1 hour documentary to a feature documentary to 3 1 hour documentaries to an interactive doc. So, and I feel like it's a real pleasure to work with somebody who's kind of, you know, responsive. And he's just a different kind of producer. And I like it because his brain is a little bit crazy like mine. And we send each other articles at 2 a.m. and it's all, you know, it's all good. So I think it's really a matter of, you know, finding the people that you want to work with and finding the people who are, you know, both respectful of what you want to do and your voice, but who are also there, you know, I think in film particularly, like the role of the producer is to really support you and help you make what you want to make. Because it's true that your ideas there's so many ways in which your idea can get subverted that you really need somebody who's, you know, going to help you carry that vision and who's going to remind you and who's going to kind of protect you in a way and help you make what you want to make.
Oh, excellent answer. So I did, there are some questions coming in. I'm going to, well, we should be starting our Q&A right now. So I'm going to ask one more question just for you guys, if you want to share any of your recent or upcoming works. It's like, you know, you guys all have amazing projects going on and great work. So if you would like to, you know, speak on any of your projects, right now would be the time before we jump into our little Q&A and wrap up. Nobody? I know you guys have stuff. I've been following you on Instagram.
I have an art installation that I was working on in a residency called Origins that's going to be at the Regent Park Film Festival, likely in a virtual exhibition space to be determined. And I also have a project that's an adaptation of my thesis project that's going to be a large scale 2D projection mapping on the silos that are at the foot of Bathurst Street. And that's going to be for Black History Month.
Awesome. Quentin or Kofi, jump in there.
I am working on something. I'm actually supposed to go to the States, the West Coast, in about 4 days. I can't really speak on the project. We're going to be filming and it airs in February. So I haven't really been talking about it much, only because, you know, I'm not supposed to. But yeah, I'll be documenting the whole process. I've already started. So when it rolls out, like, people will see why I'm so quiet.
Okay, amazing. So something's in the works. Okay, Quentin.
Yeah, there's too many things, but I would love to encourage everyone to check out two of my public art installs that I just got done. One is the Joshua Glover Memorial called Step Into History, located at 4208 Dundas Street West in Etobicoke, in the West End still, close to Rexdale. And then the second one is going to be unveiled tomorrow. And the address is 30 Merchant Wharf, which is on the waterfront, Queens Quay in Akins Park or Atkins Park, one of them, A Park, down by the waterfront. And then I have a couple more artwork. I have a project with Artworks TO coming out. So a couple more public art installs. That's kind of like my trajectory right now. And then I'm relaunching this art book called Cosmic Underground Northside, which is Canada's first book on art Afrofuturism. And from a Canadian perspective, and we're going to be relaunching the book with like some more pizzazz, the je ne sais quoi, yeah. So those are some of the things I can talk about. And then I do have some special projects with some special celebrities who I have relationship with that I can't speak on because it might end the relationship. So shout out to Director X. But yeah, we got something coming up, and I'm excited for it.
Okay, yeah. So everyone who's watching, definitely check out, follow these amazing artists on their socials. We'll probably drop their information in the chat as well. And on the website, it does have links. So, if you're not following them already, you guys are missing out because they are always dropping fire in Toronto area and beyond. So do keep an eye out on their work. We have a question from Timbuktu Education. So how has the process of engaging in art changed in the recent years, given the rise and impact of social media? So anyone can jump in on this. We only have like 10 more minutes.
I'll keep it brief. I'd say it's giving us a lot of power, but that power is always shifting due to the changes in the algorithms. So I guess every time we get a handle on how to engage a large group, the algorithms change. And I feel like everything is always leading towards making us pay for ad space to open up our platforms, but away from social media. Or I guess a good strategy is to find your community on social media and figure out a way to take them away from social media. So that could be an email list, that could be your website, that could be an in-person group, WhatsApp group, whatever it is. To me, I think that's the goal. Find your community and leave this social media space because we don't control it. And the overall objective is to have us pay to maintain our online communities.
Oops. So another question, what advice would you provide for youth that are interested in pursuing art? Maybe let's mix it up. So Q, I'm calling you.
I'm gonna let Nadine go first.
Okay.
And then I'll follow.
That's the hard question. Like I would say surround yourself with the right people who are going to support you. I find it's like hard navigating through the space to find your own voice. So I think, I would say be confident in your voice, keep an ear open and listen to the advice that people are giving you, but also kind of stay centered in what you want to do, because I think it's easy to get distracted by what other people think that you should do, or trying to please other people and not really developing your own voice.
everything that Nadine just said. The one thing I'll add is I emphasize on this a lot, especially with the youth who I mentor. Follow your passion. Like, don't follow the trend, follow your passion, and then research on your passion. That's how you keep growing. Like, if your thing is shoes, research about shoes. Like, you know what I mean? How's the different ways you can represent the Jordans or whatever, You know what I mean? For me, I've done like extensive research on monuments, you know what I mean? And I can tell you, most people who think about classical monuments think about it from a racist standpoint because monuments started in Africa. And I can give you like historical references, and that informs my work. Like, that research is what informs my work, you know what I mean? And so you will never run out of inspiration when you follow your passion.
Yeah, so using your passion as your guiding star, but then continuing to learn and continuing to grow. Excellent.
And play chess with Kofi. It definitely inspire you. And one more thing, watch the movie Soul.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I'll have to watch that one because I didn't watch it yet. So there's one more question, and it's very straightforward from Joseph. What inspires you?
Nadine and Kofi.
So what inspires?
Short answer is everything. Literally everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you get inspiration from the things around you, from, either reacting to the things you see or, yeah, I think it's just, living life is an inspiration.
Good answer. Okay, Q, you sent it off. Now you have to answer. What inspires you?
Oh, Nadine and Kofi.
Okay. Okay, amazing. Okay, so we're going to end the questions there. So before we wrap up, I just want to thank you guys for coming out and being the panelists for Decode and Disrupt. It's a pleasure speaking with you as an emerging artist. Like, you guys inspire me as an artist, and so getting information from you guys is amazing. And so thank you for being here. I also want to send a huge thank you to Rhea McNamara, who was my mentor throughout Vector Festival and to leading up to this panel. I kind of followed in her footsteps, and there are so many organizations for Black artists and artists in general that will help you gain the footing that you need to develop yourself as an artist. So look, search, make connections, because they are out there and people will be willing to help. Another huge thank you. Sorry, I wrote them down so I don't forget anybody. Megan McLaurin, Belinda Kwan, Nada, Vibe Arts, and Interaccess, who pretty much made this possible. And then, yeah, so I think that's everyone. And obviously, everyone who came out to watch and support and sent me those messages like, don't be nervous before the panel. Thank you guys for being so supportive. And yeah, I'll send it over to Megan for our closing.
Thank you, Kanisha, for showing up, not being scared, and for having us, for having me. I can only speak for me.
Thank you for all of us.
So apparently that closing is good enough. I just also wanted to thank the sponsors as well. Let's not forget. So the Vector Festival funders, the Government of Canada, the Canada Council of Arts, the Ontario Art Council as well. So let's just throw that in there. Okay, everyone, have a great night, and thank you for making it up tonight.